Please be seated. The court is now back in session. Again, the floor is given to the assigned lawyer for civil party to report for the question. Civil party lawyer, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Civil Party, this is my last question before the break. You stated that after Nuon Chea made a speech to encourage your group at Boraikila, where were you stand after that, or what happens to your group? Answer. After he made this speech of encouragement by Uncle Nuon Chea and Tamok and others, they organized us to be sent in two different groups. One group was sent crossing Net Leung, and as for my group, about 400 of us, we had to fetch a ferry to the north part of Choyongwa Bridge, and we had to cross the Tunle Bat. Questioned, were you sent with other equipments, or were you provided with other equipments? Answer, we only had our clothes, and we were sent on a GMC vehicle and ZIL Chinese-made vehicle. There were also other vehicles and tanks on the ferry crossing Tunle. But as for the other groups crossing Net Leung, I did not know about them, although the number was similar. There is around 400. We crossed Tunle Bat. Then we arrived at the staff office at 92 at Srah Pagoda, and Tapin was the person who was in charge in that area. We rested overnight, and next morning at around 8 or 9 in the morning, we saw Komonka Chinese-made vehicles with the Sunset and 2 Chinese advisors, as well as 4 or 5 truckloads of equipments arrived. Lawyer for Civil Party, thank you. And Mr. President, I conclude my session. President, thank you. And I'd like now to hand the floor to the co-prosecutor to put questions to the Civil Party.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Civil Party, today I will be examining you, and probably also for a few minutes tomorrow morning. I would like to revisit a few questions regarding the context, and first of all, what you said regarding the fact that you were a monk during the period, if I remember correctly, between 1970 and 1971. When you were defrocked with the other monks, did the revolutionaries tell you why you had to disrobe?
At the time, the militia group of Angka told us to disrobe so that we could join the resistance to attack the American imperialists and the Tribunal troops, because they said we would not be having any food offered as monks, and for that reason we should defrock. After we were disrobed, we were sent further and further to the upper level.
En d'autres termes, à ce moment-là, est-ce que vous...
In other words, at the time, did you think that you had a choice not to accept to disrobe?
No, it was impossible for us to protest and not to disrobe. We had to disrobe. If we did not, we would be taken away still in the monks' robes, and there were cases where novices were taken away.
J'en viens à la période donc où...
I'd like us to talk about the period during which you had to join the army, in particular Division Number 1. Can you tell us who headed that division, who commanded that division?
The commander of Division 1 was CM Mate. He was the first commander, and the second and third were Ta Seung and Ta Sari respectively. They were in charge of different affairs.
Qui était votre chef au sein du...
Who was your leader in Battalion 180? Who was the commander of that battalion?
It was Brother Bun Theng. And there were also Sut and Chai alias Lut. They were deputies, and they later came from Hanoi.
Est-ce que Bun Theng est resté votre chef?
Did Bun Theng remain your commander in Kokong, first as Kampong Som and later in Kokong?
He was arrested upon our initial arrival. Sut and the other one were arrested upon arrival. That's why Chai, alias Luant, had been arrested prior to 1975 by the party. Sut and Bun Theng were later on arrested.
D'accord, tout à l'heure je crois...
Very well. I believe you said a while ago that you knew Tamok very well. Can you tell us under what circumstances you knew him between 1970 and 1975? Did you see him often?
Tamok was the direct commander in the battlefield, in charge of divisions 1, 2, and 3 respectively. The 3 divisions were under his overall charge. And his partner was Nuon Chi. These two were very close. Tamok was skillful in military strategy, and he himself directly involved in the battlefields. And I am very sure about the Tamok. His name was Chun alias Tamok.
J'en viens alors aux événements que vous avez.
I would like us to now talk about the events you described at Pochentong. Immediately after the airport was captured, you said that a number of soldiers who are pilots were led away in trucks. But prior to that, you also said that you had wanted to contact your brother. Now, how were you able to contact him? Or how were you able to find him? Or you only found his friends?
He was not my younger brother, but he was actually my elder biological brother. His name was Dan. He was a military pilot for a helicopter. During the times, during the battle, even for Khmer against Khmer, they had to take action. And as I stated earlier, when I was at Pochentong, I knew for certain that my other brother was located in Pochentong, and I learned of that concrete information through radio communication. So immediately upon my arrival in the location, I went to look for him in order to inform him to strip off his uniform, that is the pilot uniform, and at the time there were also some of his friends who were present there, and one of his friends did not believe in what I said. Then he went along with the others per instructions by Angka in order to go there to wait and greet Angka. But I tried to save my brother by letting him go away along with the two of his friends, that they had to wear civilian clothes and that they should return to their respective native villages. I escort them out to the front gate, the eastern front gate of the airport.
So you went looking for your brother, and you warned him to not believe what he was being told. So what are the elements that led you to believe that they were going to face difficult times, your brother as well as all of the former Lon Nol soldiers who were stationed in Pochentong?
Through instructions I learned from Angka, which were relayed through our unit chiefs, and the information was also public. They said that any pilot has to be executed upon our entry. And for that reason, I had to find a way to warn my brother as well as his two friends. In fact, I told other people there too, but they did not believe in what I said. There was one person who came from the same village as I lived, and he did not believe in what I said, and he says that he wanted to see Angkar, and that he would be returned as a pilot, but I said that there was no guarantee for that. And later on, when I asked his surviving children, there were 2 or 3 of them, I asked them about the fate of their father, and they said that the father died.
So you were a member of Battalion 180 in Division 1, and then you joined the Army in 1971, and furthermore, you had at least one brother in Lon Nol's army. So were there other members in your family who were officials or soldiers for the Khmer Republic, that is to say the Lon Nol regime?
But my 2 other my 2 elder brothers were also working in the Lon Nol's period.
Avez-vous caché?
Did you hide the fact that you had brothers who had worked for the Lon Nol regime as servicemen or as officials? Did you have to hide that for the revolutionary forces?
How can I give my answer? So what is the specific question put by you?
Between 1971 and 1979, did you have to hide the fact that you had members of your family who had worked as Lon Nol servicemen? And if yes, why? Why did you think that it was necessary to hide that information?
Allow me to inform you, Mr. Co-Prosecutor. When I was a soldier for the revolutionary Angkar, my name, I did not use the name U Dao, but U Sun. And I did not use my birth village as my birthplace. Upon being recruited into a soldier, I was trained about revolution. I engaged in the study session about the communism, the struggles for the movement in order to fight against the American imperialists and its puppets, and to attack the feudalism and reactionary. We were trained how to distinguish classes. And later on, I registered my biography, but I concealed my real names. I did not include in my biography the number of siblings I had either. I made mention of my 2 siblings in the biography.
Tout à l'heure,
Earlier, you said that instructions had been given by radio, and the instructions said that these Lon Nol soldiers had to be executed, did Tamok himself say something regarding the fate of these soldiers who had been sent outside in the trucks, in the GMC trucks?
Tamok said nothing. He told us to board the vehicles in order to head for the west along National Road number 4. And that is all I know. I saw that the soldiers were sent westwards. They were in 3 or 4 vehicles at a time.
Now I'd like to read out an excerpt of your WRI E319/23.3.42 in order to refresh your memory. And this is what you said at question and answer 34 and the following. And I will quote in English, there's no French version.
So I quote question 34. Did you hear from the soldiers who transported those people about what happened to those people? Answer 34. Tamok himself said that those people were taken to be smashed. Question. When did Tamok say that? Answer 35. Tamok said that after those Lon Nol soldiers were trucked away. Question. Were there commanders from other divisions present with Tamok? Your answer 36. Suimat and Miss Mut were with Tamok. Question. How many people were trucked away? Answer. Around 30 or 40 people per truck. Each truck was packed full. End of quote. Monsieur la partie.
Civil party. Does that refresh your memory? You said to the OCIJ that Tamok himself had said that these people had been taken away to be smashed.
I cannot recall that.
J'en viens à la...
Now I would like to turn to the meeting in Phnom Penh. When you were therefore taken from Kokong by boat and then by truck and then by train. So can you tell us when, in which year, and in which period of the year you arrived in Phnom Penh at Borei Kela?
It was early. It was in the early months of
Monsieur la partie.
Civil party, I did not hear your answer. Could you please repeat your answer? So when during the year, and which year, and which season did you arrive in Phnom Penh? When you will, of course, recover.
I came to Phnom Penh and I arrived at Boracay at around mid-year, maybe in June or July or August. It was in June, July or August that I arrived at Boracay.
Est-ce que vous...
Do you remember the year? Was it the last year of the regime, or was it the penultimate year of the regime?
I did not hear well your question, Mr. Co-Prosecutor.
Oui, je voulais savoir.
Yes, so you were speaking, I wanted to know if you were speaking about June, July, August 77 or 78. That is to say, either a year and a half before the end of the regime or a few months before the end of the regime and the arrival of the Vietnamese.
It was in the early second half of 1977 when I was sent to Boracay.
Fine. So before you arrived at Boracay, when you left Koh Kong by boat, were you told where you were going and why? And in particular, were you told that you were going to go to the Eastern Battlefront?
I was not told. They did not tell me. As I said, I was convinced by the Democratic Cambodia leaders, so we were divided and we were invited to go to the staff office where Tapin was in charge of. I spent a night at that location, and at around 4 there was Sun Sen.
Civil Party, I must interrupt you because this is another topic. I'm therefore going to stop with this question, and this is another topic I'm going to get back to. But now I'm still speaking about Koh Kong, and I was asking you, did you receive any information about what you were going to do later? And you said no. So when you boarded the ship, and then when you boarded the train with many other people, so just before you had been, this is just before you had been arrested, and were you afraid when you were taken away far from Koh Kong?
I was initially afraid that I would be imprisoned in a new location in Phnom Penh, or maybe in another location. But after I reached Viering, it appeared that I would not be imprisoned, but I was to be sent to another location. There were a lot of comrades and combatants boarding the train at the time. As a result, I did not feel afraid any longer.
Parlons de ce.
So let's speak about this train. So all of the people who boarded that train, were they brought to Boraikela? Do you know that?
No.
Yes, all of us were brought to Boraikela, and we stayed in a 3-story building, and I was on the 3rd floor, the top floor.
Et une fois à Bor-
And once you were in Boraikela, were you with all the people who were with you? Were they all former soldiers, or were there civilians with you too?
To my observation, and from the question that I asked where they were from, some were worked in a mobile unit, some were from some were from a district, and some were from a sector.
Est-ce qu'il y avait
Were there women or young people in that group?
It appeared not. They seems to be adults, and after we reached Wadstad, there were plenty of young people.
You said earlier that they made you watch a film that evening on the war between China and Japan. Do you know why they made you watch that film?
That was the documentary film from China. It was shown until the end. It was about the fighting between China and Japan. I thought, as well as others, that my comrades and I would be sent to fight against a specific or a certain country. We thought that we would be sent to fight against a country.
tout à l'heure?
Earlier, you said that you had already known Nunchea in 1973 when he came with Tamok to visit a hospital or when you were injured. And in the supplementary information form E3/5979A at French page 011908777 to 78, in English 00865686, and Khmer 00578510. Well, here you also mentioned Que Sampon. So did you see Que Sampon in 1973, or was that a mistake in the form?
ខ្ញុំអត់ដែលបាន
I personally never saw him. I never saw him, but I heard his speech.
Donc Quand vous dites que vous avez...
So, when you say that you heard his speech, do you mean you heard his speech or speeches on the radio? Or when did you hear his speeches, or upon which occasion?
I heard Khieu Sampon's voice over the radio broadcast. Disseminating the information. It was in 1975 or 1976 that I was able to hear the voice of Mr. Khieu Sampon. He made a broadcast over the radio.
Est-ce que vous vous souvenez?
Do you remember the content of this broadcast? And do you remember his Khieu Sampon's words? Do you remember what he was talking about?
Cách dưới
He made inspiring and good speeches. He made mention about the rice supply. One individual would receive 1.5 cans or 2 cans of rice. That was one of the topic he made mention in the radio. He said that each and every one would receive 1.5 cans or 2 cans of rice per day.
Did you listen to his speech when you were in Kampong Som in 1975, or had you already gone elsewhere?
I heard his speech from the inception of the decade. Most of the time, the revolutionary songs were played on the radio as well as speeches.
So you had access to a radio. So in 1975, when you were in Pochentong and then in Kampong Som, before your arrest, were you a member of the party, of the CPK, or were you a member of the Youth League?
I had already become a youth league member as I was a progressive person.
Earlier, you said that in his speech, Nunchea, or rather, you characterize Nunchea as the person in charge. How did you learn that? And who told you the role that Nunchia could play in the army? You said that he was the head of the army.
I learned that information clearly since Nguyen Chi had been the deputy secretary of the party. The deputy secretary of the party has to take care of military and economics.
So can you tell us how you learned that? Who told you that? So how did you get that information?
I got injured, as I told you. A messenger of Tamok, who knew me well at the time, told me, since I asked him, and he said, that is the brother number 2, the deputy secretary of the party, and one of the senior Angka member. From that time onwards, I started to recognize him as he was the deputy secretary of the party.
Est-ce que c'est quelque chose?
Is this something that you knew in 1973 when you were injured, therefore? Is this something that you also heard later on?
Mr. President, maybe it would assist the prosecution that we have conceded on multiple occasions that Nguyen Chi was the Deputy Secretary of the CPK, that he played a key role in formulating party policy, that he spoke at Borai Kala. So I'm happy to refer the Chamber to our appeal brief, to our closing submissions, to our closing brief. It might speed up things.
I thank the defense, but the question was focused on Nguyen Chia's responsibilities in the army. So I believe I can put that question to the civil party. So how did you learn about brother number 2's position in relation to the army in the economy? You said that when you were injured, that a Tamok messenger told you this in 1973, or is this something that you also heard after 1975?
I was told when I got injured. They told me when I inquired them about that.
Maybe a last question before we adjourn, Mr. President, and I'll have further questions for tomorrow. Who among Nguyen Chia, Tamok, and Son Sen spoke first during this gathering at Borai Kela, where you were taken to?
I can draw a clear conclusion that it must have been Nguyen Chia who was the one who made the inspiring speech to all of us. President, it is now time for the adjournment, and the Chamber will resume its hearing tomorrow on Friday 11 in November 2016 at 9 a.m. The Chamber will continue to conclude the testimony of 2 TCCP 235. Please be informed and please be on time. The Chamber is grateful to you, Mr. Civil Party. The hearing of your statement is not yet does not yet come to a conclusion. Court officer, please work with the vessel to send this civil party to the place where he is staying at the moment. And please invite him back into the courtroom tomorrow. Security personnel are instructed to bring Mr. Nuon Chea and Kyo Sompon back to the detention facility of the ECCC and have them returned into the courtroom tomorrow before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.